Hi, welcome to Pedestal Installations. Today we're going to talk about installation planning and how you should organize your job site for roof deck applications. So planning the layout is really key to success. You don't want to redo anything on roof decks. It takes too much time, it's very difficult, hard to access, things like that. So you want to make sure you do it right the first time. So keep in mind there's a lot of lead times for different things, including sometimes the slabs, there's other trades involved. Make sure you coordinate with the general contractor. You may even need to schedule crane time several weeks in advance to make sure you can get those bundles of material to the roof. So let's take a look at some of the things to keep in mind and important questions to ask. So how can the materials be placed on the roof deck? If you can use the tower crane, that's great. That's the quickest way to get them up there. But again, they have very specific times when they're going to let you do that. So again, you need to schedule it. If they say your time's at 2 o'clock, make sure the truck's there to unload at 2 o'clock, not 2:15, not 2:30. If they give you a window, that might be a little bit more flexible and easier to do, but most of the time they're going to tell you you have to be there at a certain time. Now, if you have to go through the building, that can have huge cost impacts. Whether it's a new building or an existing building, really might depend on how you have to put down any kind of protection board and things like that. Because a lot of these bundles are going to weigh 2,000 to 3,000 pounds. You can't be rolling across a granite or marble floor with a pallet jack. You need to make sure that you take a look at those things before you submit your bid. Where's the point of beginning? Where are you going to start your layout and which direction are you going to work? Well, these roof decks, you don't want to paint yourself into the corner. On some of them, you want to start from the corner and work your way back. It depends on what trades are up there already doing work. They may be putting the facade on the building. There may be other waterproofing things they're doing. So you got to take a look at those things and coordinate with the other trades. What features or obstacles are going to impact your layout? Is there a pool? Is it a radial design? What planters are up there? When are they going to do the landscaping? Some contractors like to wait until the landscaping's in before they install their slabs. So you got to also take that in consideration. And then finally, can any beneficial efficiencies be gained by doing your installation? So working in multiple directions with multiple crews, using string lines versus chalk lines, things like that. And we're going to take a look at some of those. First, I want to talk about some kind of examples of some slab layouts. So in this first example here, we're showing a roof deck that has no pool area. It's really nice because the slabs are dimensionally fit within those different widths here and down here at the other end. So it makes it a very clean and efficient installation. So for that first example, a good point of beginning may think about being up here in the corner, and you can work down the face of the parapet wall, and then also along the access area, and work your way across that surface. But remember, as you install more slabs, you're going to be rolling across them, walking across them. It gives you a higher potential for breakage or any kind of staining, damage, things like that. So keep that in mind. You're also limited to one crew because you really have to work systematically across that field. You can't just pick up in the middle of the design and start installing the slabs. A better way to think about your installation would be to do what we call a T alignment. So you put your first two lines out there, kind of in the center of the design. That will allow you to actually work in multiple directions. So your point of beginning is going to be here. You can actually work in 4 different directions and speed up that installation. So instead of having one crew on the job site, you could potentially have 2, 3, or 4 that are out there working at the same time to help speed up that installation. Less time on the job site is going to be much more beneficial. Now, some contractors may start further away from their access point and paint your way out of the corner. So again, you can do that same option. This way you're not rolling equipment over there, potential for staining or breakage, things like that. Again, you can work in different directions. And they've actually used the part of the building where the pool storage is at to start that east-west line here for their layout. Now comes an example where you might have a pool feature out there. So the blue area here is showing the pool feature. And what's nice about this is that the designers fit this pool right in module with the layout of the slab. So there's no cutting around the pool, which is really nice. And it still fits, in the same layout as the previous examples. Now, since this is your feature, The best place to start is actually around the pool there and work your way out in 4 directions from the pool. So if there were any things on the outside of the parapet wall, that's where your cutting might be, not up by the pool area. We'll show you what an example of what that might look like. So in this case, we've shifted the pool location just to show you here where the point of beginning might be over here. And if you lay that out in that same arrangement, you get up to the pool area, and you notice that there's some half cuts in there. So since the pool is the focus of the area, the feature, you may want to change that so you don't have all these cuts right around the area where people are going to notice it the most. And so you can adjust that. So for example, C here, you can notice that we actually adjusted the grid here. So all the cutting is around the outside by the perimeter wall, and so you have this full unit sizes up along the pool area. So you're going to start up here in the corner is your point of beginning, the starting point, and then you're going to create that T as well and work out in 4 directions. So what's unique about this is you do have that obstacle, so you will work in those 4 directions, but here you're going to have to combine and tie in. So it's a different way to lay it out, but things to think about when you're working on your projects. So just to summarize this, installation planning and figuring out how to be efficient is really going to help make a successful installation. Project size, design, and amenity features will really determine the best way to lay out that roof deck application. Some projects might be a radial or have those planters in the way, so you really have to do it on a project-by-project basis. But take the time to figure it out initially, and you'll save time in the long run. Again, other trades may influence the best point of beginning. So again, you need to coordinate with those other trades. Consider placing the material on the roof deck well in advance of installation. So if you can get the tower crane to bring the material up there, that's the ideal. Put it up there 2-3 months ahead of time if necessary. That'll help hold some ballast on the roof deck as well. But again, there's a lot of trades going on, so again, you need to coordinate that. And then stage the material out throughout the entire roof area, not just cluster in one area. You don't want to jeopardize the roof deck structural integrity by overloading certain areas. Now let's talk about squaring the layout. This is an important procedure in doing the slab installation to make sure that you don't start to have gaps as you grow out or it starts to bind up. So we look at a couple different ways to do that. The most common way is using the 3-4-5 method, and that's just like what it sounds. You have the 3 sides to the triangle there. On the vertical side here, you have 12 feet. On the horizontal dimension, you're going to have 16 feet. So very obviously, very easy to figure out what that third size is going to be, which is going to be 20 feet. So you can quickly calculate that in your head and lay this out. And then measure from that pedestal up here all the way across to ensure that you're exactly at 20 feet. That way you'll know that your pedestals are square. That only takes a couple minutes to do that, and it's going to save you a lot of headaches and prevent you from having to pull up any slabs and reset them. Now, the same theory is the same way to do that is using the Pythagorean theorem. And I know this sounds crazy, but it's a very simple formula. A squared plus B squared equals C squared. You learned this in high school trigonometry. Very easy to calculate these things using a smart calculator, doing your multiplication of the different sizes, and then just hitting the square root button and it will tell you what that dimension is. Now I put this in here because you're not always going to be working with 2x2 slabs. We offer the Umbriano XL size, which is about 21 inches by 35 inches. So it's not easy to calculate that. If you do start to put those out and lay those out initially, you can use the Pythagorean theorem to easily calculate that correct dimension. So we'll talk about using a string line and a chalk line. We'll show you an example of that and why you want to use both and how this can help with your efficiency. Chalk lines work well to help put the pedestal in the correct position. So you can snap that out as your initial layout, put those in place, and then you can go back and you can set up your string line at the top of the pedestal. So you put that across the top. That way when you raise the pedestals up, they'll all be at the same dimensional height. You can also use our drill driver, and we're going to show you a little example of how fast that can be and compare installation speeds using the drill driver versus doing it by hand. And it's pretty significant in how fast it works. This would only be used for the M2 and M3 pedestals. Best to adjust the string line to the pedestal height. Right now we're going to do a little demonstration using the drill driver attachment. This goes onto a cordless power drill, and this will fit into the top of this pedestal here to help speed up cranking these up and down. So for this demonstration, I'm going to bring in Bruce Walters to help out here. And we're going to do a little race here between him and I, youth versus experience here with this. So we have the M3 pedestal here. This goes from about 6 inches all the way up to about 13 and a half. I'll flip this over so Bruce knows what height to go to.
Okay, this is the height we're racing to?
This is the height we're racing to.
Okay, you tell me when you're ready.
All right, ready?
Set,
go.
Yeah, this is cool. Done.
Done. As you can see, there's a huge savings in time by using the drill driver accessory. Not to mention the labor to do this would take a lot of effort. This is a much better system.
Absolutely, great tool. Thanks, Brad.
Thanks, Bruce. The last thing we want to talk about is using hand clamps and vacuum tools. The nice thing about these tools is, again, they're designed for these larger 2x2 slabs, so it's going to help out with labor and not make it so difficult to pull these up and move them. Prevents damage in the slabs as well, and reduces worker fatigue. So just in summary here, if you look at all these Unilock tips that we provided, they have one common theme, and that is to build efficiencies into the work process. Doing so is going to prevent any kind of double work and save a lot of time and labor. So keep in mind when you do this, any kind of roof deck applications, to plan ahead and think about these different things to help speed up those efficiencies. Thank you. Okay, well now we're going to demonstrate using the chalk line and string line to help you guide your installation layout for your pedestal locations and slab heights. So I'll have Bruce here help me with the chalk line demonstration. We're going to pull the chalk line across. Now some contractors will want to do the chalk line down the center. We're going to demonstrate this along the edge. You can do either, it just depends on personal preference. And what you're going to do here is you're going to visually line this up with the adjacent pedestal, and you're just going to slide these up so it touches the chalk line. This is going to help you get a good straight line, so when you start to bring the slabs over and set them in place, you only have to adjust them horizontally. It actually helps out quite a bit to get this installation moving much, much quicker. I'm going to hand it over to Bruce here, who's going to talk about the string line application.
Okay, thank you, Brad. One of the things that's kind of nice, oftentimes on a roof membrane, you may have certain obstacles you need to overcome, drain holes, things like that. It could be high density foam with the geotextile, which makes it hard to accurately mark a line, just as Brad and I have done. So oftentimes we'll use a dry line over the top side, all right? So one of the things that I like is the use of a line block, and I'll bring that up and show you. So in masonry, oftentimes you're gonna see a line block. It's got grooves to accurately hold the line in place. And I'll set that the top height elevation with significant tension to it, all right? In that, against this edge of that slab. Same thing over here on this far side. I'll make that final adjustment. Now, one thing that dry line is going to do is it'll show a little bit of sag, even with high tension associated to it, over a longer distance of 30 to 40 feet. If you're doing an installation that requires distances further than that, Brad has shown you in the presentation about doing that center point and then working in two directions. So if you're doing a center point, oftentimes you'll see a trig used in masonry as well. That clips onto the line at that center point, right inside of that line, and accurately holds that line in place. So now, from this position here, we can be working on this to the right as well as to the left and have two crews on that job. The other thing that I like about the dry line is that it's setting my elevation point as well as its pattern guide. All right, so that's one nice thing that I like as well that assists the installation. I can accurately move that pedestal in, center down that dry line, here on this cross joint coming out, put a little downward pressure on that pedestal. Now, I'll take the piece to bring up to the surface of that line, come just slightly below, fine tune it with the alignment key here to accurately bring that up right to the point of contact of that dry line. So an easier way as well. Different ways to do it. Not necessarily one is right or wrong, depends on the circumstances of the job site that you're on. Thank you. Okay, when it comes to handling the material on the roof installation itself, there's certain different various tools available to the installers to assist them throughout the installation. A simple, I think this one is a more common, inexpensive type of piece of equipment. Just a slab grabber, if you will. I'm going to lift this element up into place. It's just a scissors action, and Brad's going to do a replacement on that pedestal. All right, well, that's just kind of to demonstrate that. Now, the challenge oftentimes I see is with this piece of equipment, you need at least 1/4 of an inch on the spacing. Otherwise, you need to realign that once you use that. All right, but again, instead of trying to get 2 people involved on that installation, certainly is an option viable to the installers. And we see that oftentimes used commonly in the Midwest marketplace here on high-rise applications. However, there's been some improvements, and we want to share some of that technology with you today. This is a 2-man vac system. It's driven electrically, so I think the early vacuum systems we saw when it came to slab installations was really around a compressor driven, air driven, which means we needed a high volume compressor on that deck application to provide the power necessary to lift that. But these electric vacuum systems are great. So basically, the nice thing that I like is that between 2 people, we're dividing the weight of that slab. So here with our 𝐸 on a 2x2 slab, weighing in at 96, Brad and I are going to split that weight in half and install that. Now, what's important with this tool too is that we communicate on how we're going to install that. So basically, so we're not wrestling each other as we're setting that in, we've decided that we're going to set in low point first here into the tabs and then rotate that slab down into the pedestal, the fresh pedestal, if you will. So with that being said, power on. Couple things that I like. Brad and I have talked and communicated before we actually turned that on how we wanted to set that. We are both going to go against low point installation into the tabs here on the existing and then lower it into place here on the right. So it's important that you communicate that between the 2 people so that you're not fighting each other on the placement of that slab. So great tool to have on a roof deck. Highly recommend the use of that.